Las Vegas Raiders fans, pay attention. The news that just came out behind the scenes in the NFL could completely change the fate of our defense. A big name was released by a rival, and now all eyes are on Vegas. Will we finally find the no? One CB? And it doesn't stop there. The front office is already moving behind the scenes to build a team ready to compete in the playoffs. The NFL scenario was studied this week with news that could drastically change the future of the Raiders' secondary. Jaire Alexander, a cornerback recognized as one of the most talented in the league in recent years, was officially released by the Green Bay Packers. At just 28 years old, Alexander is now a free agent, and Las Vegas needs to act quickly. The question that remains unclear is, what are the Raiders waiting for? The team's cornerback core has interesting potential, but still lacks consistency and experience. Jacorian Bennett has already shown flashes of high-level talent, especially when healthy. Dekamarian Richardson, who was forced to play as a rookie due to injuries, has shown some promising moments but has also made mistakes typical of a college player. Darian Porter, selected in this last draft, has impressive physical attributes, but he is still a rookie, and it is unclear how he will respond on the field. The group also has players on the practice squad and reserves who can develop, but so far none of them have established themselves as true cornerbacks. That is exactly why Jaire Alexander is attracting so much attention. Although he has struggled with injuries over the past 2 seasons, playing only 14 games, he remains an elite defender when healthy. In 2024, despite limitations, he recorded 2 interceptions, 7 passes defended, and even scored a defensive touchdown in just 7 games played. The technical quality is still there, and with the right physical planning, he can return to an extremely competitive level. In addition to the technical impact, Alexander's presence in the locker room could be crucial. He would bring an all-pro mentality to a young group, providing leadership, experience, and a direct reference for how to perform at a high level. That's priceless. With about $36 million in salary cap space, the Raiders are in a position to offer a short-term deal with low risk and excellent potential for return. Even factoring in future extensions, such as a potential extension for Colton Miller, there's still room for smart moves. And even if Alexander no longer plays cornerback, his contribution as a CB2 or in the rotation would be immediately superior to any other player on the roster. The Las Vegas front office needs to act quickly. This is the kind of opportunity that doesn't come around often. Players with this kind of pedigree and still with gas in the tank don't stay available for long. Winning moments come early, and the clock is ticking. Transition hook. And speaking of early, behind the scenes at the Intermountain Healthcare Performance Center, there are some big moves happening. Sources close to the team indicate that the new coaching staff is already monitoring possible additions to transform the roster even before the opening game against the Patriots. And all of this is part of Pete Carroll's strategic decisions. And speaking of anticipation, there are big names within the Raiders mapping out every possible scenario for an impactful move in the coming days. And yes, it all went through Pete Carroll, but not everything depends on hiring. There is a question hanging over the air in Las Vegas. Is Pete Carroll really the right name to make all this work? With the 2025 season fast approaching, the mood within the Raiders organization is one of strategic urgency. Pete Carroll's arrival did not represent just a coaching change. It was the beginning of a complete restructuring of culture and identity. Las Vegas is tired of being a promise and wants to finally become a reality, and the sign of this is in the quiet but accurate moves that the board has been making since March. The offseason began with specific changes, signings of underrated names, contract adjustments, and a draft focused on physical, disciplined players with raw potential. But the signs now point to something bigger. The Raiders are not just satisfied with the current roster. Internally, the team is already working on different scenarios for new impactful additions before Week 1, and the Packers' release of Jaire Alexander was the trigger that rekindled the coaching staff's radar. USA Today analyst Jacob Kamenker noted that Alexander is a perfect fit for Pete Carroll's defensive style, which is known for getting the most out of his cornerbacks. Darian Porter, a rookie with outstanding athleticism, could grow much faster if he's paired with a veteran like Jaire. In addition, Carroll needs players who can quickly assimilate his system, and Alexander has already shown that he can understand and execute complex schemes. But it's not just a possible arrival. What's behind this move is Pete Carroll's mentality, attacking problems before they become barriers. The Raiders know that in order to compete with the Chiefs, Chargers, and Broncos, they need to be more than just average. They need to be aggressive. They need to build a roster that can withstand the physical and mental battles of the AFC West. The current roster is showing positive signs. The arrival of Eric Stokes, also from Green Bay, has already added depth to the secondary. But the idea is to form a competitive and deep group in all units, and that requires specific reinforcements, not generic bets. Carroll and John Spytek are building a team with identity, and to do that, each signing has to make sense within the established philosophy. That's why the backroom is still in motion. The Raiders may not be the loudest team in the offseason, but they are far from standing still. With space in the salary cap and a new coaching staff, the team is more active than many imagine. Transition hook, but not everything will be solved with signings. The main question of the season is still up in the air. Will Will Pete Carroll really be able to transform this promising roster into a winning team? Pete Carroll is, without a doubt, one of the most respected figures in the modern NFL, a champion with the Seattle Seahawks, creator of historic defenses, and owner of one of the strongest philosophies in the league. But now, in Las Vegas, he faces a completely different scenario. The Raiders are a franchise with raw talent, a recent history of instability, and a fan base impatient for results. And it is in this environment that Carroll will have to prove that he is still capable of transforming a good group into a winning team. During the offseason, the Raiders did their homework. They reinforced weak points, invested in young players with high potential, and brought in experienced names to fix urgent problems, especially on defense. Jeremy Chin and Devin White are two examples of pieces that can make a difference from the first snap. On offense, the selection of Ashton Jeanty with the 6th overall selection was bold, but necessary. The idea is clear. Run the ball better, control the clock, and allow the defense to breathe. But the problem goes beyond talent on paper. As USA Today's Tyler Dragon pointed out, the biggest question mark for the Raiders right now isn't about the roster, but about the real impact that Pete Carroll can have in his first season at the helm. The coach's track record shows that he knows how to build strong identities, but he also demands that his players buy into his philosophy completely. Is the Vegas roster ready for that? The numbers don't lie. In 2024, the Raiders were the NFL's worst run defense and finished with the worst total defense in the AFC West. That needs to change, and fast. The good news is that Carroll's DNA has always been about physical, intense, disciplined defenses. If he can implement that pattern by 2025, the leap could be immediate. But time is short, and the margin of error is slim. The division is brutal. Facing Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and now Bo Nix all twice a year requires much more than good intentions. It requires execution. It requires preparation. And most of all, it requires a winning mentality. That's where Carroll comes in. He didn't come to restart his career. He came to make it even bigger. And Vegas offers the perfect stage for that. The reality is clear. The Raiders don't just need a coach. They need a leader who can make them believe. And Carroll, with his energy, vision, and experience, has the tools. Now, it remains to be seen whether the roster will deliver. Question to the fans. In your opinion, does Pete Carroll have what it takes to turn this promising roster into a competitive machine? Or are the Raiders' problems deeper than they seem? Leave your opinion here. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, but I'll be back later to update you with the latest Raiders news.